In this video, we are going to find the mean using three different methods. That is, one is direct, second is assumed mean method, and the third is step deviation method. As for CBSE class 10th syllabus, we'll have three different methods of finding the mean. Well, although the answer remains the same in each case, we use different methods for some specific reason. Number one, as for specified in the question, if in an examinations, if you're asked to do by one specific method, say by step deviation method, you don't get marks if you do by any alternate method. And moreover, the second reason is that the different methods are used as for reducing the calculations. So let's begin with the first method called direct method. Now for this, as you can see, I've taken a table which involves a class interval and the frequency, which is the number of students. The class intervals are 10 to 25, 25 to 30, 25 to 40, 40 to 45, 55 and 55 to 70, and so on, right? And the frequency or the number of students given are these. So let's start with the first method, that is the direct method of calculating the mean. So in this case, we'll be making four such columns. So what are these four columns? Let's understand this. In this case, first we'll be writing the class interval. That is same as it is given in the table, class interval. Number of students also remains the same, which is given in the table. Then we'll be finding the class mark. So let's understand what is class mark. The class mark is the middle value. That means upper limit plus lower limit, that divided by 2. So I'll show you the formula in this case. We use this formula, that is upper limit plus lower limit, that divided by 2 for calculating the mean in this case. Now, if I take some examples here, how to calculate the class mark here, class mark or the middlemost value or the middle value here. In this case, it is upper limit plus lower limit divided by 2. That is 25 is the upper limit plus lower limit is 10, and that divided by 2. So that is 35 divided by 2, that comes out to be 17.5. Can take one more example. It is upper limit, which is 40 plus lower limit, which is 25, that divided by 2. This is giving you 32.5. So you can see this is 17.5 in the first case, 32.5 in the second case. Similarly, 55 plus 40, that divided by 2 will give you 47.5. So once we obtain this class mark and the frequency, the next thing that we need to do is to find Fi xi. So once we have written Fi and calculated xi, we will be calculating Fi xi. So Fi xi is nothing but the product of Fi and xi with its respective values. That means 2 into 17.5 is 35. 2 multiplied by 32.5 is 97.5, and so on. If you multiply this with this, you'll get this. So once we have calculated this, we'll be finding the summation. Summation, like that sum of these all individual values together will give you 30 and is denoted by this symbol called summation. That is sigma. Sigma is the symbol here, sigma Fi. Similarly, we'll get the summation of the last column, that is Fi xi, which is sigma Fi xi. So once we have done with this, then we'll be applying the formula to find the mean. So the formula for mean, as you can see, I've written here. The formula for finding the mean is sigma Fi xi, that divided by sigma Fi, where x dash or x bar is the symbol for mean in this case. So look into these values. We have sigma Fi xi as 18.60 and sigma Fi as 30. So dividing this with this, we are getting 62. Although the methods are different, but in each case, we'll be finding the same values for the mean. So let's go for the next method, that is the assumed mean method of finding the mean. Coming to the next method, that is assumed mean method. So let's see. In case of assumed mean method, we'll have one extra column for calculating the mean. Well, the other steps remains the same. That means we'll be writing the class interval as the previous steps or the previous types, then the frequency as for the given the question, and the class mark, which we have already calculated. So what is new here is this column, that is DI. Well, what is DI? You should know that DI is deviation here, which is xi minus A. Well, what is A? A is the assumed mean here. Well, assumed mean is taken from the column of xi, and it is generally the middlemost value. Well, if you count the middlemost value, you'll say that it has two middlemost value, that is 47.5 and 62.5. So in case of even number of observation, as in case of this, we can have two middlemost values, but we'll be taking one of them, any one of them. So in this example, it is 47.5. Alternately, you can take 16.62.5 also. Well, the answer will remain same. The final answer by that I mean to say. So let's see how we are getting this value. So this is xi minus A, and A is 47.5. So xi is this minus A is this. So it is 17.5 minus 47.5 is this. Similarly, for the next row, we'll be again doing the same thing. Xi, that is 32.5 minus 47.5, that will give you minus 15. In the next part, it is xi is A itself, that means 47.5 minus 47.5 will give you 0. So this is how we calculate di. Once we have calculated di, we'll be multiplying fi with di, that means this with this as fi di. Similarly, 3 multiplied by minus 15 will give you minus 45. Likewise, 7 into 0 will give you 0. 6 multiplied by 15 is 90, and so on. So once we get these values, next thing that we do is to calculate the summation of fi, which is in this case is 30, and we denote it by sigma. This is the symbol involved. And then we will also be calculating the sigma fi di, which comes out to be 4435 in this case. Now, after that, once we have calculated this value, the next step involved is to calculate the mean. Well, the symbol A x bar remains the same here, that is the mean. Next, we are using A. A stands for the assumed mean. So it is A plus fi di over sigma fi. So if you can see here, we have sigma fi di is this, and sigma fi is this. Well, assumed mean we have taken as 47.5. And as I told you, 47.5 is this middle value. Now, let's calculate this value. In this case, what we are going to do is simply place these values. First is A is, in this case, is this, sigma fi di is this, and sigma fi is this. So on dividing this, we are getting 14.5 that added with the assumed mean here. 47.5 will give you this only. Now, once we have done this, as you can see here, the mean in this case also is 62, which is the same which we have got by the first method, that is the direct method. Now, once we are done with this, now we are going to do this other method, that is the last in this case is the step deviation method. So let's see what we need to do in step deviation method. Now, we are on the last method, that is step deviation method. So in this step deviation method, also called shortcut method, we'll have one extra column. Let's understand what is that extra here. Like previous two questions, we have written class mark, class interval, which is same here, the frequency and the class mark, which is the middle value. Once again, recall what is xi here. Xi is obtained as upper limit plus lower limit divided by 2. Similarly, 40 plus 25 divided by 2 will give you 32.5. Once we are done with this, the next step involved is finding the deviation, which we have done in the previous part also. It is xi minus a. A is the middlemost value here. So that means 17.5 minus 47.5 is this. Similarly, when you subtract, if you subtract this 47.5 from 32.5, you'll get this. For example, randomly, if I interested in finding out how do we get this value, it is again same, that is xi, which is in this case minus a. So on calculating these values, we'll get di. And one additional step here, as you can see here, this 4 steps remains the same as we did in the first method. Well, sorry, second method. These 3 steps were same in the first method. So one additional step is getting ui. Well, ui is xi minus a over h. Xi minus a, we have already obtained that divided by h. So what is h here? H is the class size. Well, class size, you must be knowing it is the upper limit minus lower limit. So that is 25 minus 10, which is 15. Well, ordinarily, you will have the uniform class interval. In that case, you will get same h. That means 40 minus 25 or is 15, again 70 minus 55 is again 15. So what we do here is get ui, and as I said, ui is calculated as xi minus a over h. So xi minus a in this case is 30, that divided by h, and we have got h in this case. We have got h in this case as 15. So this divided by 15 is minus 2. This divided by 15 is minus 1. 0 divided by any number is 0. 15 divided by 15 is 1. 30 divided by 15 is 2. 45 divided by 15 is 3. Now, once we have done till here, that is, once we got ui, the next step is to get fi ui. Well, like symbolically, you can clearly see that it is ui product of fi ui. That means 2 into 2 minus 2, sorry, is minus 4. 3 multiplied by minus 1 is minus 3. 7 into 0 is 0. 6 into 1 is 6. 6 into 2 is 12, and so on. Now, like in all these all methods, we'll also be getting the summation of fi, which is in this case is 30, and fi ui summation, that is sigma fi ui is 29 in this case. Now, once we're done with this, next we'll be applying the formula for calculating the mean. Well, the formula here will change. Now, what is different here? It is same as in case of the previous method of assumed mean, where x bar is the mean, a is the assumed mean, sigma fi ui, as you can see here, sigma fi ui is taken from here, and that divided by sigma fi, which is 30 in all 3 cases that we have done. So what is different here is that we'll be multiplying with h in this case, that is the class size with these values. Now see what we are getting. We are just simply placing here assumed mean, as you know that it is 47.5, sigma fi ui, like this value, sigma fi ui, we got from here, which is 29. That divided by sigma fi, which is 30, and into h we have in this question was 15. So we'll get this. One common observation or error that have been observed here, that in this case, most of you take LCM while solving it. Do not take LCM. Solve this value separately. Always solve this value separately and add with this resultant, that is 47.5, to get the mean. Now, finally, we can summarize this. Let's come back to the original piece that we have. Yeah. So we have these 3 methods of finding the mean. First is the direct method, second is assumed mean method, and the third is step deviation. Sometimes you are not given any specific method of calculating the mean. So in that case, I suggest that you should go for step deviation method, because it is going to take lesser time. And you know that it is always justified to use a method which involves lesser number of calculation and that takes lesser number of time. So we have these three methods, and as you can see that in these three methods, we have these three different formulas. That is, for finding mean in the first case is sigma fi xi divided by sigma fi. In the next case, that is assumed mean method, it is a plus sigma fi di over sigma fi. The third is step deviation method, also called shortcut method. In this case, it is a plus fi ui over sigma fi into h. Well, the mean, as I said since beginning, that will get the same answer irrespective of the method you are using for calculating the mean.